All right, Patrick, let's talk a little deeper about this insanity happening and this BC rental, this proposal that's been put on the table. And you know what? It just goes to show you the absurdity that they're even proposing this kind of thing. And like you said, are they trying to tank the market on purpose, or are they literally that unaware and incompetent and don't understand economics? Like, you don't even have to have an economics degree to understand what's going to happen to the rental market if these kinds of proposals go through. And I'm so glad it's happening to you in BC and not me in Ontario. But that being said, I know Ontario often follows BC, so I don't want this to go through anywhere because it's absurd.
It is absurd, and you can't make sense of it, and I guess our job is not to make sense of it. But having said that, it's all supported. I mean, it's not like this. It's not like when we look at rental controls. So first off, there was a survey of over 400 economists who found that, guess what? Putting a ceiling on rent reduces the quality and the quantity of housing available. Now she's talking about vacancy controls. We're in a province where we have huge immigration, people moving into it, rents are skyrocketing. They can't seem to put two and two together. A Stanford study, as a matter of fact, showed that when we increase rents, future renters don't know where to go. So what happens is it creates gentrification and it reduces the options, and people stay put, and it just shuts things down. And a little side note, by the way, and you and I talked about this a little while back, which was they do this in New York. Now they have huge rent controls in New York. And this was a little known fact. Mayor Ed Koch maintained a $475 a month rent in his controlled apartment, even while living in his mayoral mansion. So this is what it leads to. People don't leave. And for those who have got maybe deeper pockets, they're playing a game in behind the scenes. It makes no sense. They're shutting down the rental market.
There is plenty of evidence, and New York is one of the best. San Francisco is another one. You're absolutely right, Patrick. There's plenty of evidence to suggest this does not work. And I know, and this is what's unfortunate about these policies. And Patrick, you and I rant about this privately all the time, but it's time we rant about it on YouTube, which is, you know what really burns me about this? Is the very people they are trying to help. And I understand this may be even coming from the right place by this MLA. I don't know. But let's assume it is for a second. The very people they are trying to help, those are the people that are being hurt, because all this does is take rental stock off the market. People will not get into real estate and not, in fact, rent these apartments. They're going to do other things. And now, if you think about, Patrick, what I find fascinating about this is if you think about what are the options, right? They've already, and this is unfortunate for you in BC, and I say you, I know you mostly invest in Alberta, not so much in BC, but it's unfortunate for people that already own real estate in BC, and it's the following. Number one, you guys have already implemented a flipping tax, or you're implementing a flipping tax. That's one very, very good strategy for real estate investors. That's coming off the table. Number two, second, Airbnb. Oh no, let's shut that down across the entire province. That's a problem. And now this is the number three. This is like the straw that broke the camel's back, in my opinion. But it will only hurt the very people they are trying to help, because ultimately rental stock will come off the market, and that will only bring prices up. This will not help. Or, and this is the part I hate the most, like it does in New York, this will deteriorate housing. This will deteriorate apartments, Patrick. If you go to New York, there's a reason every apartment is roach infested, has all these problems. The owners don't want to put any money into them because they can't get any return on their investment because of these stupid laws. And that's what's going to happen if this goes through in BC.
If this goes through in BC, to your point, now we can hope that somewhere, somehow, common sense kicks into gear. I mean, when you look at what the BC government is doing, it makes, to our point, absolutely no sense. And then add to that the fact that we've got interest rates that are higher. We've got mortgage applications that are stacking up, and that applying and receiving mortgages for rental properties is more difficult than ever. The cost of entry into that game makes cash flow almost impossible. So there's so much going on in behind the scenes. Again, we're in a province where we have people moving into it, and I think we're going to see and continue to see the outflow out of British Columbia. Guess where? Into Alberta. And like it or not, JG, I know you call me Mr. Alberta, but a lot of this is just common sense for people living in British Columbia. They have to go to, number one, where there are jobs and where there's a cost of living and a cost of housing that is affordable. We're going to start to see an already expanding tent city right across the province. And I know British Columbia is not alone in that conversation, but certainly it's going to even escalate further than it is today, given all of the changes that they've made. They're basically taking more rental units off the market.
And this kind of thing, especially, and this is what's fascinating, Patrick, because this kind of thing does not help the tent city problems. It does not. It makes it worse. And I would invite these MLAs to come on this show and come talk to us about it and try to convince us, because we're in this rental business every single day, day in and day out. They're not, by the way, and they have no clue what's going on in the business. So I'm happy to invite them to this show, Patrick, so we can have this conversation on the air and try to get through this, because I think it's absolutely crazy. And let's get one other possibility here that, of course, they don't think about, especially in BC. A lot of these properties are owned. A lot of these properties are owned outright. A lot of these properties are owned with no mortgages. A lot of these properties are generational. Again, go back to, like, if you think about what's happening in London, England, if you think about what's happening in Europe, what ends up happening is if you own this property outright and you don't have to generate an income, guess what? You don't care. You just leave it empty.
Oh, they're trying to tax that too, Patrick.
Oh, fascinating. What is this? Is this Atlas Shrugged? Is that what's going on right now? Is this Atlas Shrugged by the book, the famous book? I think it's becoming that way.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. It's like you can't suck and blow at the same time. And ultimately, that's what they're trying to do. To your point, when you have unused housing tax or whatever rule they want to wrap around that, it really is just shutting this market down. And this is lag. So here we go, folks. Number one, it is a proposal. It's a bill that they're putting on the table. Will it get approved? Likely not, or maybe it will. We don't know. But at the end of the day, it's a train of thought. This is absolutely a case of politics over policy. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. We've talked about it dozens of times. Everybody's looking at appeasing those poor renters who can't afford rent, and they blame, and of course the government isn't going to take any responsibility for that. They, in fact, will blame landlords, rental housing providers. That's where they'll shine a light. And so they come in and they go, okay, you poor tenants that the rental housing providers are taking advantage of, let us help you control. We'll control it for you, and you won't have to pay as much rent, which we know is not true. Anyways, the frustration, the exasperation is high in this particular topic, in this particular province. JG, you're in the property management business, and I know that for you, if this comes into Ontario, it will be, I don't know, devastating is a word. But anyways, we don't need to add to the list of things that we're facing as rental housing providers. There's still opportunities there. We just have to work it.
Enough on this topic. I'm getting too fired up, Patrick.
Me too. If you like what you learned here, go to the description below and subscribe for our free Insiders newsletter, where you can also stay up to date for our upcoming events and our courses.
If you want to see more stuff like this, click here. If you want to see the entire show, click there.